Hello! I want to talk a little bit today about how I figured out how to belt, because it's still pretty new to me. I don't know that I'm all that good at it, and I've actually found it a really useful tool when I sing classically, so I want to talk about that too, because I think it shocks some people, but it doesn't shock me too much now that I've come through the speech pathology major and graduate school, and I have some neuroscience under my belt now at the PhD level, so it doesn't shock me too much from the scientific standpoint, but it is an interesting little thing I figured out how to do. So where I learned it. So for like my whole life, I've been the person who's like, I can't belt. There's no way I can belt. I've taught belters, but I still can't belt. Like, I was that voice teacher. I could tell that whatever they were doing wasn't really necessarily hurting them too much if they weren't using excess effort or strain to do it. But I could not figure out how to make the sound without hurting. Okay. The only time in my life I probably was belting was when I would do my Ethel Merman impression, which I still do enjoy doing sometimes, but it doesn't feel good, and, you know, I'm not Ethel Merman, so, I mean, yeah, I guess I should probably do a little bit of it, right, because that's usually, people are like, well, if you do a Merman impression, you know, you should do it, right, so, this is my little Ethel Merman, you ready? Here we go. There's no business like show business like no business I know. Everything about it is appealing. Everything. Okay, so stop myself there and scene. But that's my. So that's the only time is if I'm trying to be like Ethel. You know, I could feel like I was belting, but it doesn't feel good, and it never felt good, and. I was like, yeah, I don't think I could sustain that for a very long time. And I had really no understanding of how the heck belters do what they do. So what happened in February of this last year, of 2016, is I took a webinar with Kitty Verdolini, who is a major voice therapist and voice researcher in the voice therapy field. And she developed LASIK Resonant Voice Therapy, and also Casper Stone Confidential Flow Therapy, which is what the webinar were on, those two therapy techniques. And I was taking it to beef up my resume as a voice therapist so that I could, you know, so I could say I had a certificate, like I've completed the training on this. So it was a webinar for voice therapists to learn how to apply the therapy to their voice clients. And so resonant voice therapy is a very common thing in the voice therapy field, and she pulled it a bit from her own experience as a singer, the idea of this, you know, mask resonance, this buzzy resonance quality, and she did a lot of research on it, and she's developed a therapy technique based off of it, and it's fantastic. And the benefit of it, you know, I know a lot of voice teachers out there are like, well, you know, I deal with mask resonance all the time. I deal with buzzy resonance all the time. The pingy, zingy quality of the voice, you know, it's silly for therapists to think they need to, like, make a program out of it. But it actually is really nice in the therapy world to have a bit of a protocol to set up, because in therapy we're really interested in maximizing the benefit, because we don't want our clients to come back to us all the time. So voice teaching is a bit different in that fact. You're like, okay, hopefully, you know, if this student is motivated and if we click, they're going to be with me for at least a year. I have a long time to train them on things, and there's a lot of things to train them on. But therapists are more like, let's get this person a usable voice and get them out of our office so they don't have to keep coming back and paying. So that's why therapy techniques that come from the performance world, they actually still are applied a little differently, and there's a little more of a protocol. It's a little more well-defined compared to, I think, what voice teachers tend to do. It's much more clearly defined exactly what it is. So science, that's what science gets us in voice therapy. So that's what I was doing. And at one point in the webinar, Kitty Verdolini, she was demonstrating the resonant voice, which tends to start with this hum, this like, you can feel a buzz on your lips kind of thing. And she was mentioning about, I think somebody had asked a question maybe about breath and if people should be taking like a huge breath or not. And she talked about, essentially you don't want a ton of driving, you don't want a ton of subglottic pressure to do the technique. It should be very effortless here. You shouldn't feel like there's a lot of pressure you need to build up to really get the voice going. And then she said, oh, and by the way, that's what belters do. Belters need to not have a lot of pressure build up. They need to not have this high driving pressure for their voice. So a lot of time belters do not take as big of a inhale as a classical singer. And something clicked in my brain because I had been playing around. I mean, one of the things, I took the webinar because I didn't have to travel. Like, it saved me a lot of money to be able to do it in my own home. But the extra benefit of a webinar is you can do it in your pajama bottoms. And like, I made myself a little brunch and stuff, and I was just sitting there chowing on my, French toast. So I had been playing around with the techniques in the middle of the webinar the whole time, I've been sitting there, meet me, meet me, Peter, meet me, Peter, meet me. Like, I've been playing around with it. That's one of the sentences that is used a lot in that therapy. So, yeah, so I'd been playing around with it. And when she said that, I was like, oh, it's basically this technique on higher pitch, like with singing range. So then I said, okay, well, now I want to play around with that. So I did. I played around with it a little bit. And for some reason, the only thing, like I was kind of sitting there like, essentially he, excuse me, I have stuff in my throat. Just going to clear that out. Whew. And excuse me, gosh, this is like a really big frog in my throat. Ha! Ha! Trying to do my swallow thing. I should have had some water with me. Oh well. So what I was doing is I was sitting there like, he, meet me, Peter, meet me. Hey, 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 hey. Like, I was just playing around constantly. And I had recently seen this video of this guy dancing to the Alicia Keys song that was like hilarious, and it was on my mind. It's on YouTube somewhere. But so I started playing around with that, and the only phrase I could come up with in a belt voice that felt okay for like, I guess about a week or so while I was playing was the little snippet from Alicia Keys' No One, I think is the title of the song. But it's her little, no one, no one, no one can get in the way of what I'm feeling. That's what I could do. I don't know. I was really bad on the no one because I couldn't let it go. And I'm a little better at it now, but I'm still not good at it in that phrase. Muscle memory, yay. But that's what I started doing. I started messing around with it. And so it kind of became like this little party trick in my mind, like this little fun vocal thing I could do, I'd go to practice rooms and be like, hey, 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 yeah. Like just playing around. Hey, yeah. Just messing. Like, didn't matter. Because I had no emotional hang up on how good it needed to sound. Like, zero. I had no interest in being a belter. I had never tried to be a belter professionally. I had never trained in it. I never had a voice lesson in it. I still haven't had a voice lesson in it. Like, I just, it was just a thing. It was a fun thing. It was a new thing I could do with my voice and play around with. And I still kind of feel like that. It's just this fun thing I do. It's not like something that I'm hung up on. I don't need it to sound good. I don't care if it sounds bad. I just spend a lot of time like just messing around and probably singing, like if I sing an R&B song, I'm not an R&B singer. I sound pretty bad doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's fun, Yeah, so like I'll just be in the shower, just, ooh yeah, ooh yeah, hey, 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 yeah. Like just messing, good or bad, doesn't matter. And then I might mess with it a little darker. Hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Or I might try to make it a little brighter. Hey, yeah, 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 right? Like just messing with what can my voice do. It's kind of this magical land of I can play around with singing. And so then, like, I did a lot of that, and I started trying to learn belt songs and stuff and try to get, like, good at it. And I started getting a little pushy because, you know, when you start to get good at something, you get invested, and then you start, like, not treating it like the fun thing it is. And so then I decided I'm going to stop doing that because I'm starting to make this a bigger deal for me, and that's not, I want it to stay this, like, fun thing I do. I just want it to be this fun little vocal trick of mine. So what I started doing is actually doing belty stuff and then going straight into singing classical, because in the classical world, I trained to be an opera singer, I have degrees, I have student loan debt that tells me I put in a lot of time and effort to be an opera singer, and so I'm very emotionally invested in that. I want to be an opera singer, you know, I want it to sound good, and when I try to figure out where's my singer's formant, where's my buzzy business, where's my mask resonance, as people call it, in opera, it's always hard for me to find. It was always hard for me to find, and it's also something I find myself, like, I manipulate, I play around with my throat to try to find it, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do. But when you can't find it, you're like, what else am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to find it somehow, so, you know, like you find yourself doing that all the time. It's like, you know, like you find yourself messing, trying to find the thing. This magical buzzy thing that you're supposed to have that you don't know where it is. But I could find it in the belt. Because it came from the resonant voice technique that I had taken the webinar from, I could find it. It was there. Meet me, Peter, meet me. It was there when I talked. Me, 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 me. You know, I could do that all day because I was doing it with clients anyway. I could find it there, you know. And then when I belted, I could find it a little higher in my voice, you know. So I could start with that, like, meet me, Peter, meet me, meet me, meet me, do something like that, feel pretty good about it, and then start warming up as classical and see if I could get something from that, right? Like a he, ooh, okay, it's there, right? Like just feeling for it. And recently I found, I did it at the end of my Zeffiretti video. I know this is already getting a little long, but it's like the most fun thing for me. I don't know, I can talk about this all day, that I can actually belt now. Ooh, at 37 I figured out how to belt. Who would have thought? Come on, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, so I, you know, at the end of the Zeffiretti, I actually belted a little of that, and I've discovered that's actually super fun too. I mean, it's like, it's breaking every rule of classical singing to belt, like, Mozart, you know? You feel so naughty, you feel like a little vocal rebel, a little musical rebel. It's like, watch out, world, I'm just doing it anyway. I'm such a dork. Total full-on dork. But it's actually helped a bit. So if I wanted to sing something else, you know, if I do the little Zeffiretti, 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 okay, I can find the little buzzy business and play with it, play with the text, play with the phrasing. I might not be able to do it as high, can't do the high notes, but, you know, play with it, and then perhaps sing it, right? So I could be like, let's see. And the whole time, the main key is I have to make sure this is feeling okay. I'm not straining when I do it, right? So I'm paying attention to that, seeing if this is straining, if I'm pushing the belt. Don't want to do that. So, Zeffiretti, Zeffiretti. It's pretty fine, okay? Hey, 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 woo! Take a bigger breath. Got to get my laryngeal posture a little shifted for the classical stuff. So I take a few breaths, thinking of that. Hey, hey, hey. Da, 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 fi, da, fi, da. Okay. Da, fi, that's how I can find it a little. And it's still not 100%. I still don't have it all the time. But if I think of doing a belt, I can find that like singer's formanty stuff in my voice. In classical, I can start to feel it, like a legitimate feeling here, like legitimate vibrations that I'm feeling. And then it sounds smaller in my head. I'm getting all the stuff that my really good voice teacher in Denver said you should be feeling. Like the sound is small in your head, and you might only hear the dark, but but the high part sounds kind of like that like witchy, twangy thing. And basically the sound in your head is ugly. Like you think there's no way this sounds good. And I can get that. When I feel that, I have that same effect happening inside my mind. And so I know I'm on the right track. I know I'm doing something about right. I've been trained and told that this is the right feedback that I'm getting. It feels good in my throat. Huzzah! Everything's going well. And so I used that little vocal toy, the little belt toy, to sort of overlap it, essentially getting out of my own judgmental head about how to do classical. I had to play more. I had to become more playful and less emotionally attached to making a pretty sound or a good sound. I just had to play. That's it. Had to play. And so, long story short, I would honestly encourage, and I do this as a voice teacher, I would encourage my students to find something to play with vocally. Like, you might have a style you're trying to do professionally that you train and that you're emotionally invested in. And maybe you're one of those singers who can just like do that style effortlessly and you don't even have to think about it. And if you do, shut up. The rest of us are trying really hard, okay? Just kidding. I mean, but check your vocal privilege, people. Those weird folks who just do it. Jeez. So for those of us who are trying, who feel like we gotta try a bit, find something that you want to sing. If it's like jazz or R&B, or if it's, rock, or if it's whatever, and you're training to do musical theater, or whatever the heck, I don't care. Like, just pick something. Or if it's impersonations, you could also play around with that. Figure out how to do really good impersonations, or really try to nail a bunch of different accents, or something. Just something to make yourself more playful with the whole voice as it is. Sorry. It's morning, Guck. I'm recording this in the morning, which is, I haven't done that yet. And just do it. Just play around with it and see what you can do. And it just is fun. Just make vocalizing in any capacity fun. Make it fun in your professional style and make it fun in your playing around style, and just try to get back to that point where it's fun and it's something you can just explore and you can just play with, because I think it helps you to embrace how flexible your voice is. It helps me anyway to embrace how flexible it is, but it also helps me discover things about my singing that I otherwise wouldn't have discovered if I had never gotten out of my own head and gotten out of my own way and gotten out of the idea of being perfect. I never would have discovered how to do something that actually feels good and is actually what I was always being told to do that I could never figure out. So, that's it. That's how I figured out how to belt, and that's how I use it. So, I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but that's my story. So find a way to play. Always stay playful and fun. See you guys next time. Bye.